said, no one ever said it would be this hard. Oh, take me back to the start.
Very good afternoon, everybody. So today, I'm very pleased to be here and have the chance to share with you how Life Technologies in 2012 was within the 10 most innovative company in the world, defined by Fast Company, as well as how we're changing completely the paradigm in genomic sequencing, and therefore changing the world. But before I go there, as we are at an innovation summit, and a couple of days ago we had a major product release from Apple, I called up my good friend Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, to check in how the new iPad Air is doing. And you know, they put on the market this phenomenal technology, is the lightest, fastest, smartest tablet out there. And he told me, Gian, we are really changing the mobility world, and we're bringing mobility to a whole new level. I know, innovation can be very fun, but also innovation, and especially strategy around innovation, can be very challenging. I'd like to ask you a question right now, and I'd like you to answer by show of hands. How many times you have faced in your career a situation where you have to trade off between short-term financial results and long-term innovation investment? Yeah, that's a fantastic idea, but what it makes to our plan for this year? It means upside. We all heard that. Sounds familiar? It does. Now let's assume that you're here in the journey. Let's assume that you're trying to bring innovation to your company. How do we do that? How we are successful without compromising the short-term result? The way that we approach this within Life Technologies is try to bring innovation to a different level. It's not making a trade-off between short-term financial results that are extremely important and long-term success, but it's more generating a culture within the company that is driving and striving for innovation every day. And that's what I'm going to try to share with you in the next 20 minutes. To do that, let me start with a story. The story is the story of Oreste. Oreste was born in 1918 in a very small country in the northwest of Italy. And for the one that knows a little bit the boot of Italy, we have a lot of mountain up there. It's extremely cold. When I was 8 years old, I spent a lot of time with him, and it was winter. I still remember that winter, but was one of the coldest winter we ever had. And I can still vividly see in my mind white field of snow. I was 8, so the snow was pretty much as high as I was. It was that cold that we spent a lot of time in the house. It was my grandfather, by the way. And he shared with me a very compelling story about what he did in his life. And one of the stories that I always remember, it was in this big red armchair. And I still remember his very thick white hairs. I never thought I would be jealous of that hairs, but right now I am, right? At that time, I couldn't imagine that that was my path. It's definitely an innovation. But he was telling me a story, he used to tell me a story about him going to war. If you recall, he was born in 1918. He went through the Second World War. It was a very challenging time. He risked to lose his right leg due to hypothermia. And as well, he lost several good friends during the war. But one thing that he constantly told me is that at that time, the incentive they have to find creative way of solving the problem, whether it's distribution, it was in a distribution of food. It was bringing food basically to the army, to the resistant army in Italy. And they found all new way to generate more efficiency in the logistic, less risk, and losing less life. So definitely during the war, we had an enormous amount of innovation. If you just think about the Germans with the coding, it's the base of modern computing. And that was invented through the Second World War, at least adopted and improved. A big part of that innovation was done through the war. So that incentive to innovate became a critical element of success of some of this innovation. And I think there's a leitmotif here. When we look at innovation, we need to have the right incentive. We need to think that innovation is not only for our R&D department. How we incentivize innovation across the company, whether it's in distribution, whether it's in sales, whether it's in production, across the board. There's not a lot of company that can do that. But if we think at a big company, if we think at the GE of the world, when I was at GE, I spent a few years in my career at that company, and Jeff Immelt introduced the imagination at work. At that time, he decided that all his executives needed to have a goal where they had to generate at least 3 initiatives worth at least $100 million every year. That's a way to move from point A to point B and basically get an engine in the company that is driving to get innovation. So innovation obviously is not only in R&D, and that's something that we take very seriously at Life Technologies as well. The other component that we believe is critical for innovation is to make sure that we enable our team to make some mistakes. And there's a great quote from Albert Einstein saying, if you never tried something new, you never failed or you never made a mistake. But there's few companies that are accepting that. If you think about Google, Larry Page, they create fantastic initiatives within Google where they enable their employee to bring to life their ideas. And they have a sort of internal startup incubator to bring this idea to life and then to get this idea to market. And there's an amazing buzz within the Google employee for that. And also there's an incredible retention factor on top of being a big innovation driver. And the last part that I believe is really fundamental, and again, there's a nice quote from Pablo Picasso here, is every child is an artist. The problem is when we grow up and we're put in schemes and we have all this rule and our creativity is more and more challenged. So one of the questions that we had within life at a certain stage of our journey was, how can we bring back the creativity of our teams? How can we ensure that our team can behave and can pull off the artists that they had? And we decided to create a theme that is Imagine the Day. That theme has the objective of projecting the imagination of our company, of our customer, of our team member to a whole new level. And to share this with you, I'd like to project the video now.
Imagine.
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 Imagine the day
When life is a trusted and indispensable partner to every scientist, physician, and laboratory around the world.
Imagine the day when every baby is sequenced at birth.
Imagine the day
when we own anything involved with the reading, the writing, the mapping of DNA.
When the world uses rapid DNA testing to help make the world safer.
And DNA becomes a biometric standard used globally by law enforcement, healthcare, and financial professionals. Imagine the day.
Imagine the day.
Imagine the day when it's not oil. It's algae that provides power to the world.
And all the products we sell are fully recyclable and biodegradable.
Imagine the day.
When we made measurable impact in improving the lives of people living in underdeveloped parts of this world.
In securing the supply of clean water and food all around the world.
Imagine the day we are able to restore memory to patients suffering from Alzheimer's disease.
When we've dramatically increased lifespans.
When we're able to stop outbreaks before they sweep the globe.
Imagine a day when life technologies has been a relevant force in solving the mystery of cancer.
Imagine a day when your children thank you for working at Life Technologies.
Imagine the day.
It's closer than you think. And together we're going to make it happen. Life Forward in 2013.
That's our way of bringing the imagination to our teams, as well bringing the imagination to our customer. That's been a phenomenal driver to engage our team in innovation. And the reason is that this video is sharing something that is very difficult to perceive. That is the connection between our technology and the impact that we have in improving human lives. Is our mission as a company. Let me share with you a little bit more about Life Technologies and what we do as a company. Life Technologies is a company that operates in the life science space. We are widely known in that space because we produce tools to sequence DNA. For the ones that are not very familiar with DNA sequencing, we take basically the DNA, that is the code of life, and we read through it. It's not a simple exercise because there's basically 30 billion letters we have to read through. It's like reading a full encyclopedia and trying to find a variation in a small letter within that encyclopedia. So technologically, this field made huge progress in the last 15 years. And I believe that Life Technologies today is at the forefront of innovation in that area. I'm going to share with you why. Steve Jobs said that creativity is just connecting things. Well, it was easy for him, right? It's more difficult for some of us. But the reality is that if you look at our field, as many other fields, creativity and innovation is mostly coming from bringing together things that already exist. It's not always getting something new out there. So what we did a couple of years ago was, actually we started a little before that, was acquiring a company called Ion Torrent and rethink the way the sequencing was done. Sequencing the DNA was done through optical technology, very difficult and expensive technology. And we thought how we could leverage semiconductor in order to do sequencing. Now, that means connecting things. Yes, we took $1 trillion of investment that were made in the semiconductor industry in R&D, and we brought it to molecular biology, to sequencing. The result? The result was the first machine that now in 2014 is going to be able to sequence the entire human genome in one day at a cost of $1,000. And that's a pretty big revolution. And the reason is the one that you heard in that video. That day that we were imagining in that video is here, is coming. Today we're able to help the 3.5 million patients that develop cancer every year here in China. You have to know that 2.5 million people die of cancer every year here in China. It's an incredibly important challenge that we have to address. You also have to know that there's thousands of people that have been jailed for crimes they didn't commit. And through DNA technology, we can help having them rehaving and regaining a life. So that's an example of what I think it's an innovation made from connecting the dots, connecting two worlds that were so far apart, but are coming together, are bringing sequencing and screening to a whole new level. This is how the sequencing cost evolved in time. So in 2000, we sequenced the first genome, and we spent basically $3 billion. It took 11 years to do. Right now, the cost is going down in 2014 to $1,000. We can do it in one day. It's scalable and it's simple. That's going to change the life. It's going to change my life, my family's life, your life. Think about the implication of this. You can get your gene sequenced in one day and get the answer that till today we didn't have. So we are a DNA company, right? We're technology, we're technologists, and that's what we do for a living. But I think that if we take this example and we transpose this to other fields, it works as well. There's several companies, and I'm thinking about Xiaomi here in China. They basically took technology that were available, and they're producing mobile phone, right? And they brought it to a whole new level. They create all social community around reinventing the way that software works. Every week, they redesign the software based on customer input. That's amazing. And I think right now they're worth more than $10 billion, and they started up in 2010. That's another great example on how bringing things together, it's making all the difference. So to summarize the presentation for today, I think there's four main things that we found being helpful when you try to drive innovation and when you try to shape a culture of innovation and not only making trade-off between short-term and long-term. The first one is to get the right incentive. Make sure that teams across the company have the right incentive to innovate and to innovate the way they work. The second one is connecting things. As we mentioned, we brought in the semiconductor technology to genomic, and it made all the difference. And now we are looking at a revolution that is happening in this world. The third one is enable experiment. We need to be vulnerable, and we need to let our teams making mistakes if we want to get the next big things. And then unleash people creativity. And I think imagining the future and connecting what they do to the impact they have on society and on humans, it's a great way to do it. Not only in our field and in our industry, but in several other industries. So sequencing for all and innovation to improve the world. I hope that you learn a little bit about life technologies today. And if you need your genes sequenced, don't be shy. It doesn't hurt. You just need to get your blood drawn or a swab, and you can know a lot about yourself and about your genetics. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Heads on the sides apart. Nobody said it was easy. It's such a shame for us to part. Nobody said it was easy. No one ever said it would be this hard. Oh, take me back to the start.